Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lane One Making Waves. This week on the podcast, we have Coach Don Heidary. Coach Don is the co founder and head coach over at Orinda Aquatics alongside his brother Ron, a program that is not only nationally recognized for its sustained success over the years, but also for its community, culture, and athlete development. With decades of coaching experience, multiple NCS championships, multiple Olympic trials qualifiers, multiple swimmers that go on to compete at colleges all over the nation, and the list goes on, Coach Don is extremely focused on developing fast swimmers, but also even better people out of the water as well. Coach Don has spoken at multiple clinics, both nationally and internationally. He has multiple articles published in the World Swimming Coaches Association, Swimming World Magazine, the American Swimming Coaches Association, and the list goes on. Coach Don really shows his passion for swimming, but also for developing strong leaders for the next generation to come. So if you're a club coach, if you're a collegiate coach, if you're a parent, or you are a swimmer, this one is for you. Stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. I am joined today by Coach Don Heidary. He is the co-head coach at Orinda Aquatics with his brother Ron, and he has a very, very interesting and very special approach to character development with athletes. So very excited to have him on today. Don, your coaching journey, it spanned many years, starting from Miramonte High School to Orinda Aquatics, and you've even traveled internationally to help with coaching clinics. So what first sparked your interest in coaching, and how has your passion for the sport kind of evolved over the years?
Well, my brother and I were swimming in the summer leagues in Northern California in Pinole, and we were 16, and they brought a new coach in, and he literally to the group asked if anybody would like to help him and be an assistant. And I instinctively raised my hand, and I looked down the pool to see who else raised their hand, and my brother was at the other end with his hand up.
Oh, wow.
So that was our first job. And it may sound cliche-ish, but we fell in love with it and never looked back. And we've worked together for 45 years. So that's how we got started. And, I think it just is in our blood. We love it. We love working with kids. We love team building. And so from summer league swimming to high schools to Orinda Aquatics 30 years ago, we've been working together and just trying to do what we do.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really shown that special relationship that you have with your brother and now impacting young athletes and making sure holistically they're set up for success both in swimming and throughout their life is very special to kind of witness and see. And throughout your career, you've consistently emphasized the importance of character in swimming. So, how would you personally define character in the context of swimming? And why do you think it's such a crucial aspect of a swimmer's development, both inside the pool and out of it?
Well, I would start with a little bit of the background. When my brother and I were growing up, we didn't grow up in a religious house. We didn't really have any bearings outside of what you do, and so we started this pursuit of personal growth, self development, spiritual growth. And everything that we learned and we wanted to try to apply to our lives, we felt should be a part of kids, a part of teams. Why wouldn't it be? So we went on this journey and we just said that we're going to embed these principles into our programs and not really be flexible about it. So to answer your question, why is it important? The character part is there's a quote that we use from Albert Camus: integrity has no need of rules. And we put it on everything because we want a constant reminder that you live doing the right thing. You know what the right thing is. You shouldn't have to be watched. That's why we travel with 75 teenagers and no chaperones and no bed checks, because they embrace that concept. that they know that they need to do the right thing and they want to do the right thing. So I and we'll get into this, but the principles of character basically are part of your human existence, who you are at the core, right? You can't, and this is one thing that we've talked to coaches about. You don't want to coach athletes and then they go out in the world and they're the people that they are. You want to coach people and you want to know who they are as a person. And a byproduct of that is them as an athlete. And we make it clear with kids that we only want to work with people that value character, integrity, work ethic, and those things. And if that's not something that you embrace, or it's that's not who you are, this is not a good fit for you. So the character part's important because if it is who you are at the core, then if you think about kind of the outcroppings of that, um, service, compassion, work ethic, all the things, if you asked a coach, what would be the most important thing to create an unbelievable environment, an inspirational program, they would tell you kids work hard, they care about the team, they do the right thing, they help out, right? All those things, well, that's your personal side. It's not your athletic side.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the way we evolved and built it into the programs. And as I sent to you, it's been extraordinarily successful. And we have made presentations, actually, propositions that the model is turned upside down. You're looking at training kids or athletes, and we're looking at building incredible human beings that will then become incredible athletes and then will reach their potential. So we try to flip the model the other way. So we spend a lot of time in meetings with kids on life issues, on character topics, on being resilient, on it, inspirational people that have come before them, leaders that have come before them, because we want them to carry themselves that way. And then when we ask them to work hard, they do. And even when we don't ask them, they work hard. And so our argument has been, if you want to be successful, that's where you start. Don't start with volume and intensity and lactate testing, and
Mhm.
get into a person and find somebody that will embrace work ethic and embrace selfless support of their team, and then you'll see what your program can accomplish. So I know that's a long answer, but that's kind of the higher level approach that we take.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a great point there, and it's character isn't just who you are when you swim, right? I mean, the person that you are outside of the pool is just as important as the person you are in the pool. Because realistically speaking, you don't just swim and then you become a whole different person. Those character traits, the integrity, the resiliency that you're instilling in these athletes will be with them long beyond their time in the pool. It'll carry to their academics, it'll carry to their personal relationships, and it'll carry well past when they touch the wall for the last time. And it's also who they surround themselves with, which kind of goes into building that positive team culture. And so, how do you, as a coach, approach creating and maintaining that culture at Orinda? And what does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis for both your athletes and also your coaching staff?
So we have a lot of dialogue, as I said, with the kids, with the parents, about who we are and what we stand for and who we're going to be and how what we want to present to the swimming world.
Mhm.
So it's very clear. And we also tell them this is black and white. There's not a gray area here. And that's not to say that kids don't make mistakes, but so first we communicate the message in everything we do. Every meeting, literally a workout meeting, we'll talk about some aspect of being a better person and a better athlete and a better team. So they know it. They know that it's clear, and they know that we're very strict about it. That we won't tolerate any disrespect, even negativity. There's never any bad language. They just know that, and so the first thing is it's communicating it, but it's also selling a vision of why this matters and why it's important for you in your life. And so we move 75 to 90 teenagers effortlessly because they all understand the mission and the purpose and what we want for them as people.
Yeah, and I mean, having those clear boundaries is extremely important, especially in today. I mean, swimmers, we no longer come from a generation where you show up to practice, you do the practice, and you leave, and there's no questioning, right? Like, we're very curious individuals. And so having that open communication, that open trust with coaching staff, really helps build that positive team culture and knowing ultimately that you as coaches have their back through everything. Obviously, like you said, there's no gray area. You have high expectations for them, but it also means that they want to meet those high expectations and bring up others around them in the process. And being a club coach, there's coaches of, or there's swimmers of all different ages. You have learn to swim, you have your 8-year-olds who are swimming back and forth, maybe for the first time doing a flip turn. You have your high school swimmers. And as I said, there's so many different levels that go on within club coaching. And so, how does your coaching philosophy kind of shift when working with younger swimmers versus your elite athletes? And what do you focus on different stages within that athlete's development?
That's a great question. Our starting point is for everybody is how can you maximize your career?
Hmm.
And this is, I think, one thing that we may be different from a lot of clubs, and not with us, because part of our philosophy is that everybody's going to go on to swim in college. So we that's our starting point. So if you're going to do that, and we assume you're going to do that, and we want you to do that to have that experience, then you're probably going to be peaking beyond 17 or 18 years old. So how do we set up your career at the club to allow you to continue to develop and love the sport? So that's the general view is that we want kids to flourish. We want them to go on and continue in college. We want them to continue to improve.
Hmm.
So it becomes a much different, it is not a season plan, it's a life plan. That what we're doing every day is supporting that progression and that process. So within the kids, our focus is to get kids in the best position to develop. So we don't run the program by age as a hard number
Hmm.
or time standards because somebody that has innate ability to swim fast in a few events may not train well or they may be immature. So we just try to make sure kids are in the right group at their level to develop and progress. And we always have an eye on the end game with us is moving kids up through the senior group to the national group, but we want to make sure the progression is healthy and productive.
Yeah, and I do think that is something that may not be like extremely rare, but it is definitely something that I'm not used to within club coaches, and that is making sure that the development makes sense and that there is an ultimate goal to swim past high school. Because we do see a lot of younger athletes kind of peaking in high school and then they may get to college and feel burnt out. So having a coach that's looking out for their development, both as a high school athlete, but knowing that the ultimate goal is to peak past that is extremely important. And I do think sets you apart from many others. And you've had a lot of sustained success at Orinda Aquatics. Over the past, I believe, 22 years, you were the top team with under 200 athletes at the virtual club championships for USA Swimming, which is based on that PowerPoint index. And so, looking at your sustained success, what do you think are the core strategies or principles that you rely on to help your swimmers realize their full potential?
Well, I think that speaks to the culture that we talked about earlier. First of all, we care about every kid. So we have about 150 kids on our team. We care about everyone from a personal perspective and from an athletic perspective. We focus on what we would characterize as efficient training. It's not based on volumes, it's on developing balancing strokes, moderate training early, gradual development, learning how to race strategically and efficiently. So we're not overtraining kids early,
Mhm.
but we feel that we're accelerating their development on the technical side. So, but they get a lot of attention. We care, as I said, we care about every kid. We talk to kids daily. We film kids, and I think that partly with the character backdrop and the attention that kids get in our training philosophies is what has created the success of the program. And The justification is it's not sporadic and it's not cyclical based on talent or numbers. It's been every year.
Hmm.
So I think that does speak to the fact that the model works. And there's a quote that we use often that is a rock pile ceases to be a rock pile the moment a single man contemplates within it the image of a cathedral. And so what we look at is every kid, if you think about that lens as a leader and as an athlete, what could you be? What's possible? And that's the pathway that we want you to move on. And it's very common that shy, mid-level kids that don't think they could ever be a leader or a sectional or national level swimmer, they blossom and their life transforms.
Hmm.
But part of it is because we believed in them and we supported them to do that. So we don't look at kids as names on a roster, kids in a group, but can you grow into be an extraordinary leader? And what really would your potential be as an athlete?
Yeah. And I know from personal experiences, a lot of my coaches I'm still in contact with today, and they are my mentors because they ultimately were the ones that made me realize the potential in myself because they believed in me before I really could. And so, you're touching the lives of very impressionable youth, and it's such a key part in their development. Um, as they grow older and become adults in society. And one thing, as we've spoken about, that sets you apart is the emphasis on character building, which you've spoken about at numerous clinics. You've published a lot of different articles speaking to the facts. What are some of the biggest challenges that you may have faced instilling this strong character in your swimmers, and how have you overcome them?
Well, as you might guess, social media would be one, and the drug and alcohol challenges that teenagers face. So we address those early and often. We have meetings on drugs and alcohol, why people do it, what need they're trying to fill, the pitfalls of social media, abdicating your identity to external influences. So we talk a lot about it. So we try to get kids to see those challenges for what they are and not get caught up in following the crowd and peer pressure. But and then I'll tell you another one is sometimes as parents, because parents, they want their kids to do certain things, or they might speak a certain way at their home that's negative, and you see that in kids. So we confront it head on, and we really don't have discipline problems. I mean, it might be once a year. I mean, you think about it, we have 90 high school kids in our program, and we have no discipline problems, no disrespect, no bad language.
Hmm.
But it's because they buy in. They buy into the culture, and it's not just buying in; it's they embrace it, and then they thrive by being a part of it.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Emily at USA Swimming, and she is the manager for psychological services. And she brought up a point that as a nation, we are very reactive instead of being proactive. And so I believe your approach is very proactive to kind of address these situations that may occur and present them to these athletes before they have the chance to kind of get caught up in them, which is very important, as we said, with impressionable youth. And kind of going back to the psychology and the mental health aspect, swimming is a very difficult sport. You're training for hours at a time to potentially cut hundredths of a second, tenths of a second at the end of a season. How do you ensure that the mental well-being and strong character are both just as prioritized as athletic success in your program?
Well, we make it clear that their personal growth, health, and well-being is far more important than anything they do in the pool. So we make it clear, and I think the kids know that and feel that. So I don't want to say that performance is secondary, because I realize it's the reason for being an athlete and why parents are writing a check every month. But in the big picture, it pales in comparison. So we keep a close eye on kids for stress levels and any issues, and we check the obsession with times early when kids are young, and ask them to take a step back and shift their goals goals to process goals, attendance, work ethic, being a great teammate,
Hmm.
improving your stroke technique. And so we try to, as you said, we try to be ahead of it. But if you're not, I mean, you know what it can be like, where kids are obsessed with every race and parents are obsessed with every race. It's counterproductive, it's unhealthy, and it ends a lot of careers early. So
Hmm.
we talk a lot about that. And again, I think that the history and track record of kids developing through a national level and competing in college would suggest that it's not a problem where we are. I think obviously to some degree for everybody, they want to do well and we want them to do well, but it's not the single driving force.
Yeah. And setting those process-oriented goals will also ultimately lead to the outcome that you do desire, but also make it enjoyable along the way instead of very intense, which can lead to burnout. And you've worked internationally, you've visited a lot of international countries and spoken to coaches of different cultures. And so what are some key takeaways from your global coaching experiences that you've brought back to your experiences as a coach at Orinda Aquatics?
Well, to your last question, it would be a almost singular focus on performance. What I've seen, I haven't seen aggressive cultural pursuits, the benefits of being an athlete and being on a team. It's you're either performing or we need to spend more time studying. So that's what I see. And in the United States, because the club system is so prevalent and so deep, kids get
Mhm.
that experience of being on a team. But I that's what I've seen is, you're either performing at a level that meets expectations, or let's get another tutor and spend more time studying.
Yeah. Wow. Um, we kind of touched on it a little bit, or you spoke about how sometimes parents play such a pivotal role in an athlete's success, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. And so, how do you engage your parents in the process of developing these swimmers into not just better athletes, but also better people?
Well, as I said, we talk about this all the. I mean, you probably know now. It's everywhere on our website.
Mhm.
It's in all communications. The parent meeting. That's a big part of it. Is the culture of the team and our expectations and what we want for the kids. And people that come into the team, by and large, come for that. It's rare that we have somebody comes in and says, "I don't care about your culture. I just want my kid to swim fast."
Mhm.
So I think generally the parents, well, not generally, they overwhelmingly support what the program stands for. We get thanked often about what we're doing for their kids. And, the other thing I've told coaches is this type of philosophy virtually eliminates parent problems because they appreciate what's happening and what we're doing for their kid. And we might have one a year.
Mhm.
And so it just creates a flow to everything you do. But our parents are amazing. They stay and help with pool covers and they set up and they're incredible. And it's because they want to be a part of the process.
Yeah. And I mean, trust is so vital in that process. And you can really see how it has fostered under this character first approach. Your swimmers and your athletes, they trust you as coaches. Your parents trust you to coach their children, but also parents are trusting their swimmers within this process as well. And you and your brother Ron, you've developed the character first approach, including a manual for ASCA, the American Swim Coaches Association. So could you walk us through the core principles of that philosophy and why it has become such an integral part of your coaching?
Sure. And it is, and again, we just tie it back to life, but it's the character part. We even talk about humility, compassion, selfless service. So we create these anchor points that we believe are critical to your life and to your life as a teammate and a swimmer.
Mhm.
And we talk about them often. And that's another thing on our team is there's really no ego. The kids are humble. They help. Um, but those are the main things, just, integrity, work ethic, embracing work ethic, not being willing to work hard, but wanting to work hard. which is a challenge for a lot of coaches, getting kids to work hard. And talk about is you don't want to make it an external pursuit. You have to work hard. You want to develop kids that embrace work ethic as a personal attribute and a virtue, and so that they want to do it. They don't have to be told. But it works that way in everything, whether it's being humble, helpful, compassionate. It has to be internal. So that's kind of the foundation of that. And we gave a lot of examples and offered methodologies to build that out. And but it's really just setting core principles up and embedding them into your program.
Yeah, and having that kind of translate to that intrinsic motivation that you're speaking of, where, as you said, athletes are doing it because they want to and not necessarily for that external validation. And what does that look like for you in your daily practices with your athletes?
Well, it's extraordinary, and we regularly on the deck look around and realize how lucky we are to work with these kids. They're always on time. They help set up the pool. They help take down the pool. They're polite and respectful and compassionate with their teammates. They work hard. We've run 80 swimmer workouts in 10 lanes with 4 people at each end, and we give the workouts out on a piece of paper, and they put them on the wall, the gutter, so they can see them at eye level. And they'll go through 2 hours on their own, communicating send offs. Everything works like clockwork, and we don't say a word.
Hmm.
So I mean, we just feel blessed to be a part of it. We love the kids like family. Um, they're extraordinary, and then the byproduct is that they do pretty well.
Hmm. No, that's amazing. I mean, 8 swimmers per lane, just speaking as a distance swimmer, I'd look at the pool and be like, it's almost my worst nightmare.
Well, what we do, not to get too technical, but the workout has to all be 25 sets of 20-25. So we might set up for let's say a moderate aerobic set, 20-25s on 25 or 20,
Hmm.
2 breaths and 8 strokes. So we have to be creative, but the
Yeah.
only way to keep the lane in balance is to run 25. So we'll go through kicking underwater, change strokes, change intensity levels, but the main point is they're all moving in unison as
Hmm.
one, and they're communicating across the pool and to the sides, and they do it, and they'll do it without a coach directing them.
Yeah, and I mean that's amazing. I think as a coach, that's something you can not only dream of. I mean, you've worked it into practice, but you always hope that when you turn around or you take a break, that your athletes are still instilling that workout and taking that under their wing to perform their best. And some coaches may have some challenges with that. So what advice would you give to a new coach who's trying to instill that character first approach within his swimmers and team?
Well, I would say again, you have to address the person, not the swimmer.
Hmm.
And the work ethic analogy would be, I don't want to work hard, so I'm not going to do it. Or as you said, I want to get fast and I want something, so I'm going to work hard. The third one would be the coach told you to work hard, you better work hard. The fourth one is, and this is the one you want, you don't have to ask a kid to work hard because intrinsically they want to work hard. They embrace it. It's innate. So, and that's the same thing with integrity. You
Hmm.
know, being on time, or you know, doing the set the right way, or picking up garbage in the team area. It's either who you are or it's not. And if it's not who you are, it doesn't even matter whether I'm there or I'm not there. This is not going to work.
Hmm.
Well, you need to find a way to build inside of you the virtues that create a great teammate. So I would just say the external part rarely works because it's like yelling at your kid every day. There's a reason they don't want to clean the room. You got to find out what the reason is
Hmm.
and create a scenario where they want to clean their room.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I would say is start with the kind of the human side first, and then the rest of the stuff just starts to flow.
Yeah. And I mean, it also goes by leading by example, right? Like I can tell that you are the first person to arrive early and work hard and make sure that your athletes see you as that example. And so if you're a coach trying to instill character in your athletes, you have to also make sure that they see that when looking up to you on the pool deck as well. And you've spoken about the cultural headwind of self-centeredness and the unhealthy influences on youth sports. So, how do you see swimming serving as a counter to those trends? And how do you ensure your team stays grounded in its strong values?
Well, just to touch on what you said, if you have a peer group that's positive, that kind of becomes your safety net.
Mhm.
So you have a group that is like-minded and like valued, and so it's a healthy environment to be there. And then those kids become their social circle, so they get somewhat insulated from all the stuff going on around them. But I think having a healthy, positive team culture is invaluable, and it is way more important than your performance. You
Mhm.
know, talk to parents and they go, well, what do they need to do to swim faster? And I tell them, listen, if you're raising a healthy, happy kid that does the right thing, you don't need to worry about much else. But it's not that easy.
Yeah. And building that positive culture, I mean, like I said, it goes way past club swimming. I mean, when your athletes are being recruited by coaches, you're trying to make sure that they have that positive environment past your club swimming that they can impact the team that they move on to within their collegiate swimming. And a lot of a lot of collegiate coaches look for that in athletes when they're recruiting. So if you have a swimmer who is very fast, but maybe struggling character wise, and you have an athlete who is maybe a little bit behind speed wise, but has that strong character, more often than not, with coaches that I speak to, they're going to recruit that swimmer with strong character to help enhance their collegiate program. John Leonard from ASCA, he has praised your work, calling it among the most important work being done by any swim coaches in the world today. How do you feel about this recognition and what motivates you to continue your dedication to character development in swimming?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the comment, but it's not really a comment to us. It's a comment on what is important. And
Mhm.
anybody that is helping youth stay grounded and building a value system, especially in today's society, is doing the most important work. I'm paraphrasing, but there's a quote that we passed out: when we save our children, we save our future.
Mhm.
And kids are going through a lot. I mean, you know the statistics on depression and mental health issues. So there is nothing more important. And so whether it comes through the avenue of swimming or not,
Mhm.
it's what kids need. I just wanted to add one thing on the environment. What we build into the program is we call it it's a two-way street. So we're going to ask you to do these things to work hard and to be a good teammate and to help out. And in return, we're going to help you
Mhm.
a lot. We're going to care about you, but we make it clear that if you can't do those things, you're not going to have our support.
Mhm.
And that pathway is leading you to not be a part of the team. So it's something that they know that it's not like, hey, I'm paying dues and coach me and help me get faster. This is a relationship that is two ways, and it's not a, coach and athlete. It's two people. This is what I need you to do, and I'm going to do this for you. And we've not moved kids up to a national group that had national time standards because they were immature.
Mhm.
You think about that as a standard to move up. But in our program, it's very important that kids learn maturity and act as such. And so they know that. And you want to see somebody turn around quickly, you tell them you need to mature or you need to grow up or you need to handle these situations better. It happens pretty quickly.
Yeah, and having that consistency across the board is also extremely important. I mean, they know what they need to do to move up. And so having that clear communication, but also the consistency within your athletes is so important. And kind of touching on your point, as I've said, we're coaching and raising the next generation. And my parents always said I could quit swimming at any time. The only caveat was I had to pick up something to replace it because they knew how vital it was to be involved in the community and to develop character, whether it was with swimming, whether it was a different sport, or whether it was something in the arts. They just cared that I developed as a whole person, which you can see in your club environment now. And I fell in love with swimming. I became a little bit overly obsessed, which I think you kind of touched on. Some swimmers may have the same problem at a young age. And swimming is both physically demanding and mentally taxing. I know being a distance swimmer, there are plenty of times where mentally I was tuned out, physically I was still there, but it was very tough and challenging. And how do you integrate mental training and toughness into your athletes' routines? And how do you prepare them to handle the pressures that come with competing and performance anxiety?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have the Stoic app, which is mental training, and we talk a lot about it. But the main thing that we try to impress upon kids is you have to read your mind and your body, and when you need a break, you need to take it
Hmm.
because, and they know that. Well, intellectually they may not, physically and mentally they do. That you're always on a tipping point,
Hmm.
and they balance it. They all want to get great grades and go to a great school, and they want to swim at a higher level, and they then you have all the extracurricular things that they do, and it's a fine line to thread the needle of training consistently, keeping your grades up, doing what you need to do, and not breaking down.
Yeah.
So we talked to him about, you listen, you need to read your body, and if you need to take a day off, do it. In the long run, it's better.
Yeah. And I mean, you touch on something very important there, which is recovery. And recovery and training is often overlooked, I find, especially within age group swimming. But it's essential for long-term development and long-term success to avoid burnout and to avoid not loving the sport as much as you once had. So, how do you educate your swimmers on the importance of recovery and how do you make sure they balance that hard work with proper rest? So, what does that look like for an athlete that may come in and you may notice they may not be as on top of things as they were the day prior?
Yeah, and it is very important. A lot of it is out of our control, so we communicate regularly about nutrition and sleep. But when you think about just recovery in the pool, hydration, nutrition, sleep, anxiety, pressures, the external pressures, it, it, it's hard to contain. But if they have an awareness that you've got to take care of yourself to sustain, then they start moving in the right direction. But I mean, kids eat food that's not good for them, and they think they can stay up till 2 in the morning doing homework. But
Yeah.
we let them know at some point it's going to affect you.
Hmm. And whether it's not immediately the next day, it will happen eventually later on down the line. And the sport of swimming, it's not linear, right? I mean, we all wish it was. I wish I dropped time every time I got in the water, but there are inevitable setbacks, whether it's an injury, whether it's a plateau, or even just a disappointing race. So how do you help your athletes learn from these setbacks and bounce back even stronger?
Well, it may sound cliche-ish, but any challenge that you have really becomes a growth opportunity. So we tell them up front, we tell them when things happen. This is part of being an athlete for every athlete that these things happen. And what we have found is they generally become springboards to a better career. We had a kid that joined our team. Her strokes were bad. She ended up having a shoulder injury and a surgery. She kicked for 6 months, and we
Hmm.
told her, kick hard, and you're going to work underwater like you never have. And when she started swimming again, which was about a year later, she dropped 5 seconds on her backstroke. She was halfway underwater off every wall and ended up being a summer junior national qualifier.
Wow.
But in the moment, it would have been easy to say, well, this was a disaster. We're not staying. So, and we stay there with the kids with them. So we communicate with them. to help them through. But we just remind them, this is going to make you stronger. It's going to make you more mentally resilient, and you can focus on other areas. It might be fitness. So it's, we just try to be with them through the journey as a partner.
Yeah, and making sure that it stays at a positive level. So, I mean, as I said, setbacks inevitably happen. I also had an injury where I was kicking for 6 months just with my snorkel on my stomach or on my back. But it is how you view that setback and how you come back from it. And keeping that positive mindset, knowing that this isn't going to last forever, but that ultimately you can come back stronger from it and learn from it. I don't like the word failure because I don't think anything is truly a failure unless you fail to learn from it. Um, Coaching elite athletes requires high level commitment, not only from the athletes, but also from a coaching standpoint. And so at Orinda Aquatics, what does an elite training regimen look like, and what elements do you believe are essential for creating your successful and high performance program?
The For the national group, it's 2 to 3 mornings during the week, Saturday, 4 afternoons, 4 dryland workouts. We use Swim Strong Dryland. We're not in the weight room. The workouts typically range an hour and 40 to an hour and 45 minutes. As I said earlier, they're efficiency based, a lot of kick counts underwater, stroke rate, stroke counts, focus on technique. Um, and and again, we try to be aware of what they're doing so that we're keeping them in a position to develop through high school and beyond. So it could be easy to say you've got 20 national level swimmers and you got to max them out in the next year and a half or 2 years. And you increase the workload by 30%, the intensity by 50%, you have them in a weight room. Is that the right thing for the long term? We don't think so. So we're pretty methodical about what we do. Workouts are typed up, written out in advance with swimmers' notes and um, things that we want them to work on. So, somebody could look at it on paper and say that that's not enough swimming, or that's not what every national program does. But we've had a lot of success. The kids love the sport. They all want to swim in college. So again, it works.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I would say that's a better definition of success than maybe an athlete who may not be as in love with the sport, but is still competing at a high level. And so knowing that your workouts, they're intentional. So every piece within the workout has some intention. It's not just to continuously swim, get in, swim 2,000 straight and get out. There is a point to everything. And as you said, you're very methodical in how you set up the workouts, both like throughout the season, but also throughout their journey within the sport. And coaching has evolved tremendously throughout the years, and coaches are constantly learning and adapting. What new insights or strategies have you gained over the years that have influenced how you coach and work with your swimmers today?
I think at the core, we still hold strong to our beliefs and our philosophy about coaching. So in that regard, nothing. But certainly technology has changed, and I've talked to companies this week that are doing amazing things with technology. I think
Mhm.
filming has helped advance the sport, above water and underwater filming, and we do a lot of it. So I think those two things are pretty significant in the last decade or so. But I think that you still have to hold to your values and make sure, as I said at the very beginning, what matters in life should matter on the pool deck, in the locker room, and so we keep focused on that
Yeah.
and try to support the kids in any way that we can to grow personally and athletically. But I think the other stuff is more peripheral.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, as you said, there have been so many technological advancements within the sport, whether it's, as you said, filming or lactate testing, heart rate monitors. But if you're too focused on the data that you're receiving and not as focused on the swimmer as an individual, the outcome still won't be there long term. And so, kind of getting into advice for swimmers and aspiring coaches. For young swimmers aspiring to compete at the highest levels, what advice would you give them on how to approach their training and mindset who might not have the opportunity to swim under you or Ron?
Well, the advice for any young swimmer would be to focus on technique and efficiency and let go of the times. And
Hmm.
I know a lot of programs do that, but there are kids and parents and some coaches that overtrain 10 and unders and overemphasize national rankings and things like that. And again, I see that internationally, but I would just say the more you focus on efficiency, balance, and length in the water,
Hmm.
developing underwater speed, that stuff will pay dividends exponentially down the road. But if you're overtraining young kids or they're obsessed with swimming faster, so they're spinning through every workout and they have no balance in the water and no underwater ability, it's not going to play out well.
Yeah.
And the coach is going to look at that kid and say, there's no way I'm going to invest the time to fix these strokes. So they're just going to train them harder.
Hmm.
So I just think being efficient. And then the other thing that I wrote about in the parent article is to just to be a good teammate and learn that skill to help people. Check in with a coach, see if he needs or she needs any help. Look around at your teammates. But if you're working, focusing on efficiency and being an amazing teammate, if not a young leader, things are going to go well.
Yeah. And I wish that's advice young Summer would have received. I know I was the first one to have USA Swimming's top 100 times up on my computer and just obsessively scrolling through them. Yeah, so I wish I would have just told her to just relax a little bit and enjoy the process of getting there.
Yeah.
And for coaches and parents listening, what's a piece of advice you would offer to help them develop their athletes and their children who are not only strong swimmers, but strong individuals with the solid character that you instill in your athletes?
Well, I would say what we had touched on is that, and you alluded to, swimming is in the grand scheme of your life is a sliver of time.
Mhm.
But you can learn things that will, and this sounds like a cliche, but it is a reality that will transform your life. And you need to be looking for those things to learn to embrace work ethic, to have selfless service and compassion for the people around you, to do the right thing. I mean, there's so many things that you can gain from this that will be life transformative, and you can't overlook or dismiss those things for a time standard. That will mean nothing to you in 10 years.
Mhm.
I mean, the reality is nobody's going to care. So,
Yeah, so having your identity, I know when I was swimming, a lot of times swimmers would have their identity rooted in their performance outcomes. But when you finish swimming, and I can personally attest to this, you still have all of those characteristics and qualities, and you do realize that your identity wasn't as a swimmer, but it's who you became while you were swimming. So that resiliency, the dedication, the grit being a teammate and just being a strong individual in society goes way past the pool. And you've had so many rewarding moments in your coaching career. Looking back, is there a particular moment or story that stands out as a reminder of why you do this work and how impactful it is for your athletes?
I couldn't think of one because for 45 years of
Yeah.
working with kids, but it really is to see kids grow personally, to be self-confident young leaders. That's what really affects me. I mean, I love kids swimming fast, and that's what we want. And what kind of drives us on the deck, but to see kids transform is there's nothing greater.
Mhm.
And that goes back to John Leonard's comment. He knows that there's nothing more important than the work you do with children, and so that would be it. It's just we love it and we're passionate about it, and it's extraordinarily rewarding.
Yeah, and I mean, you can truly see that passion even just seeing you speak about your athletes. Even, you don't even have to list names to know that you're proud of each and every one that comes through your program. And you've had an incredible impact on the sport, both at Orinda Aquatics and beyond. So, what's next for you, and what are some goals that you have for the future of your program and the athletes that you coach?
Well, we're going to continue to do what we do. We love it. We're as passionate today as we were when we started. I am working with WISCA, the World Swim Coaches Association, and it's an honor to be a part of that group and the board of directors. Are legends in the sport. So I'm going to try to contribute on that end with coach education, and that's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, just keep doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, to just wrap up, I know you've had a lot of quotes and a lot of pieces of advice. So, is there a specific quote, principle, or a piece of advice that you hold dear personally and would like to share with our community that is listening today?
We kind of live with quotes. We put one in every workout, and I mentioned a theme quote is integrity has no need of rules. Another quote by Hugh Downs, and I have to paraphrase, is to say that your fate is not tied to my fate is like saying your end of the boat is sinking.
Mhm.
And you can clearly see how that could be a team, it could be a community, it could be a society, but just that interconnected feel of we've got to be together and supporting one another. So I always like that quote, but we're very quote intensive here.
Yeah. No, they're important. I mean, I used to always be the first one to look at motivational quotes before my races to kind of help me get in that positive mind frame and have those positive affirmations. So they're extremely important and very impactful. But I just wanted to also take another moment to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today and speak about your coaching philosophy and how it is very successful over at Orinda Aquatics. And I know this conversation is going to help so many athletes, coaches, parents also realize that swimming is more than just jumping in a pool.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be um, on the podcast and to meet you. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Don just as much as I did. I know it was truly impactful and inspiring to learn just how much he cares about his swimmers' success in the water and how he is committed to fully developing his athletes as better people out of the water as well. I highly recommend checking out his published articles in Swimming World Magazine, the World Swimming Coaches Association, and also watching his seminars on the character first approach. As always, this podcast would not be possible without the International Swimming Coaches Association and Swimming World Magazine. If you want to stay up to date on all things Lane 1 making waves, please like, subscribe, and share this video, and I will catch you all next time.